Are you looking for the best 2024 NFL Week 17 DFS advice around? Then get ready for the live Week 17 IDP Plus DFS podcast. Welcome in, everybody. I'm Joel Wirth. This is the IDP Plus Week 17 DFS podcast. My buddy and co-host Jameson Hutchison could not be here today. He is on assignment, so I'm going to hold down the fort by myself today. Let's just say this. If the Red Wedding from Game of Thrones was a DFS week, it would be Week 17 of the 2024 season. This has been just an absolute bloodbath of a week. Just players dropping out left and right. You got Jalen Hurts not playing because of a concussion. You've got Tua Tagovailoa dropping out. Anthony Richardson's not going to play. Chuba Hubbard's gone on IR. CeeDee Lamb's gone on IR. David Njoku's not going to play. Jalen Waddle, we thought might be able to play. He's not going to play. It's a mess. We've got a super short slate because of all the Christmas and the triple header on Saturday. So DFS is going to be wild this week. It's going to be super interesting. Very short slates and a bunch of players who aren't going to play. So you're going to have to find a way to differentiate yourself. It's going to be crazy. We've got 4 games of the 8 games on the Sunday main slate have game totals under 40 points. So just it's going to be absolutely wild this week. So let's talk about it. Let's get into it. We've got a lot to get to. We're going to have to find a way to make ourselves different because basically everything is going to be chalk. Like I say, it's going to be a wild Week 17. Drop your comments. If you got any comments or questions, love to take them. Love to talk to you guys this week. As always, appreciate you checking out the show. So let's get to game 1. It is the Dallas Cowboys at the Philadelphia Eagles. Again, no Jalen Hurts in this one. So the game total has dipped down to 38 in this one. Just a crazy, crazy low total for a game, that we thought would be super high scoring coming into the season. If you remember back to your preseason best ball leagues, we thought that this would be a game to absolutely target early in the season. And now, no Dak Prescott, no Jalen Hurts. Just wild. So Dallas is a 7.5 point road underdog in this one. Philly looking for a win to kind of stay in the race for home field. Philly has an implied total of 22.75, and Dallas has an implied total of only 15.25 with no CeeDee Lamb. So absolutely wild in this one. Again, no way you thought this game would have a 38 point over under. The player of the day is going to be Saquon Barkley. But he's priced up, and as you would expect him to be, he's the highest priced player on both sites. 9,600 on FanDuel, 8,600 on DK. It's hard to say he's not going to be worth it. There's not a lot of pay down options this week. It's because it's going to be so chalky. We've had so many. There's going to be a lot of options. There's just going to be not any good ones because you're dealing with a lot of backup players who just aren't very good. So. And I would think with Kenny Pickett starting, they're just going to give Saquon Barkley as much work as he can handle. So, yeah, if you can find a way to get Saquon Barkley in your lineups and still put a representative lineup around him, he's a great play. A.J. Brown also in play, I think, at 8,800 on FanDuel, 7,800 on DraftKings, just for the touchdown equity. We saw Kenny Pickett just relentlessly target A.J. Brown last week. Got a bunch of pass interference calls against Marshall and Lattimore that really kind of deflated his individual stats, but the targets were there, and he was just the guy that Pickett was looking for basically every time he threw. So I think A.J. Brown is in play. The other guy I think we're going to have to look at is Jake Ferguson at tight end, 5,500 on FanDuel, 3,700 on DK. That's a pretty nice price for a guy who's probably going to be the number one passing option for the Cowboys, who are probably going to have to throw, right? We'll talk about Rico Dowdle, 7,100, 6,000 on DK. Tough defense to run against. They're probably going to be trailing as 7.5 point road underdogs. So I don't love Rico Dowdle this week. He's a pivot if you want to get different, but he's not someone I'm actively targeting. So Dallas is probably going to have to throw. Jake Ferguson probably going to be the number one target. I don't like Jalen Tolbert against this defense being the number one option in the passing game. So I'm going to pass on him. But I do like Ferguson at his price as a tight end. And like I said, you're going to need some pay down options. It's going to be tough to pay up for the Brock Bowers of the world this week, just because of, there's just so few good players that you're going to have to lean on the big ones. So Ferguson, I think, is absolutely in play at tight end in this game, and I'm not playing either one of these quarterbacks. I'm not playing Pickett in a game that I think Saquon Barkley is going to dominate, and I can't run Cooper Rush out there without CeeDee Lamb against a very good Philly defense, against a very motivated Philly team, like coming off a loss. They still need to win this game to stay into playoff positioning. So, not much I like in this game. Again, no surprise with a 38-point over-under. But Saquon Barkley, if you can fit him into your lineup, is the play of the day. I want to say hi to our friend Nick Royce, who's checking out the game, or is checking out the show today. As always, we appreciate you. Why is Washington only favored by 3.5? I don't know. I would have them bigger favorites than that. I like them at home against the Falcons. I think it's a smash spot and we'll get into that. I think it's a smash spot for Jaden Daniels and Terry McLaurin. But if you think about it, 3 points is the most typical home field advantage. So they would probably be small favorites on a neutral site. I think that's probably right. Even with Michael Penix at quarterback, who probably is an upgrade. Didn't have great numbers last week, but played better. Just felt like he gave them a better chance to win than Kirk Cousins did. I kind of agree. I think I would have Washington as probably 4.5, 5.5 point favorites, but I don't think it's super egregious that they're only favored by 3.5. You got to remember, this isn't a great Washington team. They're going to make the playoffs probably, but if you thought about this game coming into the season, you thought that Atlanta would have been favored in this game. So not super surprised that it's only 3.5. I think that line is, like I said, I would pick Washington in this game, but I don't think it's a super egregious line. Nick also checking in saying Dowdle might be a better value. He might be. Yeah, like I said, he's probably a good pivot option in that you're going to need some places to pay down. It's not a bad price at $7,100 on FanDuel, where I prefer the running backs. How much is he going to get on DK? He could be a very good price if he gets to the targets in the passing game. Certainly not going to go to Zeke, but we'll see how that plays out. So, yeah, he could be a pivot option. No question about that. But again, very tough defense to run on. And again, it's going to be a motivated Philly team. Dallas's team total is only 15.5. So there's just not a whole lot of upside there. So, but yeah, if Dowdle gets all their touches, I could absolutely see that. And then Nick Chicken saying Penix versus the rookie of the year. That is absolutely true. No question about that. But so I agree with you. I would have Washington as a bigger favorite, but that's why they play the games, and certainly an opportunity to go out there and bet it. So appreciate you checking in, Nick. Let's get on to our next game. That is the Jets and the Bills. So the New York Jets are on the road. They are 10-point underdogs against Buffalo. 45.5 is the total in this game. So implied totals of 17.75 for the Jets. Buffalo is at 27.75. So the question here is, do you want to play Josh Allen at quarterback? He is the highest priced quarterback on both sites. 9,100 on FanDuel. And let me check here. 8,500 on DraftKings. I just think there's better options. We saw New England kind of come out there last week and just hold the Bills to a normal score instead of Allen just going off for historic numbers like he has been basically the 3 weeks before that. So, he's really tough to pay up for. And again, it's a really tough week to pay up for quarterback and tight end because there's if you want to get those Saquon Barkleys, if you want to get those Jonathan Taylors into your lineup, then you're going to have to make some sacrifices somewhere else. And quarterback is probably where I'm going to look to do it. There's some other options that I like in games with basically better game scripts, like Minnesota Green Bay, that I think should smash the total. And then, Carolina, the Tampa Bay that we'll talk about in a little bit here. So Yeah, so not super high on Josh Allen, just paying up for him. I do like James Cook a lot in this game. 7,200 on DK, and then let me check his FanDuel price. Come on, there we go. He is the little high on FanDuel, so he's 8,800 there. He's the third highest paid or highest priced running back behind Saquon Barkley and Bijan Robinson. That's a little tough to swallow. I do like him better on DK, where he's the 5th highest running back who's actually going to play. Devon Achane is ahead of him, and we're going to talk about that game just absolutely collapsing with Tua out of the game. So, yeah, I'm going to stay away from Josh Allen. I don't like any of the Bills receivers just because, like, it could be any of them in any given week. I do like James Cook. And the other guy I'm interested in is Ty Johnson, 4,700 on DK. You never know, when they may want to rest James Cook. It's a 10-point spread, right? Buffalo's 10-point home favorites. So, yeah, this could be a game script where they just, get out to a big lead and they want to rest James Cook. So I do like Cook, and I like Ty Johnson as a pay down option, maybe Ray Davis as well, just in case the Bills get off to a big lead and just want to sit on the ball in the second half. Another reason why I don't like paying up for Josh Allen this week, right? It's just not a good game script. You don't necessarily want to pay for quarterbacks in a when they're 10-point home favorites. If those games get out of hand early, it could just be a handoff the rest of the day. And be done with it, get out of here game. Buffalo's really got nothing to play for. They're kind of locked into the number 2 seed. They can't get home field advantage anymore. So doesn't feel like a game that they're going to want to go full bore out on. So I'm not paying up for Josh Allen, a quarterback. I do like James Cook. And if you need a pay down running back, especially on FanDuel, where you want to put that running back into the flex spot, I could see Ty Johnson being an option there. All right, let's get to one of the sexier games of the day. There's not too many of them, but it's the Panthers at the Buccaneers. Tampa coming off that bad loss on Sunday night to the Cowboys. They're 9.5-point home favorites. The game total in this one is 48, second highest on the Sunday slate. So Tampa is a 28.75 implied total, and the Carolina Panthers are 19.25. Man, Carolina losing Chuba Hubbard really takes some luster off of this game and off of their team total. I could see betting them under. It would have been a tough matchup, right? Tampa Bay is very tough to run against. They're very much a pass funnel defense. But, yes, Chuba still would have been an attractive option. So that really, really kind of a bummer in this game. I was kind of thinking that going into the week, I had this idea that maybe the way on a short slate to kind of get yourself different would be to just kind of fade this game, let everybody else play this game, because this game is going to be super chalk. There's no question about that. And then just, hope that it turned out to be like a 23-13 game. I guess I could still see that happening, but really tough to do that now just because there's so few other options. So we've lost so many, losing Tua just takes the Miami Dolphins just completely out of the equation. So because we've seen how bad they were when he was out of the lineup. So it gets really tough to fade this game now with so many players being taken out. So, all right, let's get to it. The quarterbacks, I think, are both in play. Baker, 8,200 on FanDuel, 6,900 on DK, and Bryce Young at 7,100, 5,600 on DK. If you want to pay down, I think Bryce Young's definitely in play. I'm not going to Raheem Blackshear. Again, I don't want to play guys who are just career special teamer, practice squad. Even though they're cheap, I get it. I just don't think they're good. It was a bad matchup for Chuba Hubbard. It's an even worse matchup for a guy who's not as good as Chuba Hubbard. So, yeah, I'm not going to Raheem Blackshear. On the Tampa side, Bucky Irving is going to be super chalk. He's going to be absolute chalk in cash games. He'll probably be heavy chalk in tournaments as well. 8,000 on FanDuel, 6,700 on DK. Had a absolute smash game against Carolina last time they played. So I love him this week, but he's going to be super chalk. He's going to be ultra chalk. That's why I'm kind of going to, if I'm going to play this game, I want to play it through the Tampa passing game, just because Bucky is going to be so chalk. I do like Rachaad White as a pivot. If Carolina can keep this game close enough that Carolina needs to keep throwing, I like him at his price, $6,800 on FanDuel, $5,700 on DK, so about $1,200 and $1,000 cheaper than Bucky Irving. If they, again, if this game gets out of hand, or if kind of Carolina keeps it close and they need to throw throughout, then I do like Rachaad White as a pivot off of Bucky Irving. And, it's not like Bucky Irving has been the picture of health. So I think you can kind of, I think you can get some leverage off the Bucky Irving teams with Rachaad White. So I think he's definitely in play this week. My wide receiver play of the week is Mike Evans, 8,600 and 7,500 on DK. I think I wrote him up in the DFS article this week on IDP Plus on the website. He needs 182 yards, I think, over the last 2 games to get to his 1,000-yard season. He has never not had a 1,000-yard season as an NFL player. So Baker Mayfield has talked about wanting to get him 1,000 yards. So I think this is the game they're going to want to get him most of that, even if they don't get all of it. So I love Mike Evans this week. I think they're going to target him heavily and use him in the passing game. Love him this week. He's my favorite wide receiver. And a preview of one of my flag plants. I also like Jalen McMillan as a pay down option. But again, he's going to be very chalk this week. I think this whole Tampa team is going to be chalk pretty much. 5,900, 4,600 on DK. Like him a lot. I think going into this, you either want to fade this game or play it super heavy, right? You want to play the onslaught Tampa lineup with some Carolina bringbacks. I think that might end up being chalk. So I think just this game and the Minnesota Green Bay game are going to be played so heavily because, like you said, the low number of games on the slate, so many players being taken out, so many low game totals, weather affecting some of these games. So if you want to play it's really hard, but if you want to play a super Tampa onslaught lineup, that may be just the way to go, just to differentiate yourself a little bit and just hope that they absolutely go off. So McMillan's in play. I think you could play him. I think he'd play like a Baker, McMillan, Evans double stack, and then bring back something like Adam Thielen, Xavier Legette. Thielen 6,200, 5,700 on DK, and then Legette 4,900 on FanDuel, 4,400 on DraftKings. I think Legette, it sounds like Legette he's questionable, but it sounds like he's going to play. So I think that relegates Jalen Coker to kind of out of contention status for DFS. I don't know that I want to be playing the third wheel in the Tampa passing game. You never know. He could be a pivot off of Legette if people play Legette. But so I think I'm kind of interested in maybe doing a Bryce Young, Evans, McMillan, and then bring back with Thielen, something like that. I think that would be an interesting lineup and maybe a way to kind of differentiate yourself if everybody wants to kind of load up on Baker and then go with Evans and McMillan as well, because I think that's going to be pretty chalk. Bucky's going to be chalk. So, just find your way, navigate around that, navigate your way around the Buccaneers stack. Maybe you want to do Bryce Young, Rachaad White with Evans and McMillan, and then Thielen or Legette or Coker. If you want to get really different, maybe Legette drops out during the game. And then Coker becomes the second option in the Tampa passing, obviously, or the Carolina passing attack. Obviously, Tampa's pass defense, not great. They've been better of late, but still not super great and dealing with some injuries. So this, again, Tampa and Carolina, along with Minnesota, Green Bay, going to be the two heaviest played games of the slate, I think. And I don't think there's any question about that, really. All right, a lot going on in that game. So that game is going to get played. How you want to play it is kind of going to define how your DFS slate turns out. Let's move on to the next game. That is Indianapolis and the Giants. Indianapolis, a 7.5 point road favorite in this one. 40.5 is the total, so just barely over 40 on this one. So 24 is the Colts implied total and 16.5 for the Giants. All right, let's start at the top. Jonathan Taylor, probably my favorite running back play of the day, especially on FanDuel, where he is only 8,400. On DK, he's much at 7,900, so higher percentage of your salary there. and he's only behind Barkley and Josh Jacobs. I would much rather play Taylor than Jacobs, just because better game environment for Jacobs, but obviously you're playing against a very tough Minnesota run defense. Last game he only got 9 carries, so and we'll talk about that in a little bit. But yeah, I don't know how Taylor is behind Jacobs. I would have Taylor well ahead of him on the salary structure. So yeah, he's probably at his price, I think probably my favorite running back play of the day. No Anthony Richardson, so you got Flacco. Josh Downs is interesting. Pittman is interesting, but are you really going to want to play them if it becomes a Jonathan Taylor game like it was last week, when you saw, he had 200 plus yards, 3 touchdowns. There's just not a lot left over for those guys to do well. So yeah, I'm kind of interested in Downs, but if I'm going to play Taylor, and he's my favorite running back play of the day, then I'm just not going to be interested in much else on this Colts team. Giants-wise, Malik Neighbors is interesting. His salary is kind of high, though. On FanDuel, he's $7,700. It's right there with Terry McLaurin, who I like a lot better. And on DK, he is $6,600. Again, right behind Brian Thomas Jr., who I like a lot better. We'll talk about those two in a minute. So with the injuries and the lack of touchdown equity, lack of touchdown upside, very tough to kind of see Neighbors being an option. He does get the targets, man. He's just absolutely his target share is absolutely incredible. 14, 10, 13, 9. So I think he's in play. And I probably want, the more lineups I get to, or the more lineups I do, the more I'm going to want to get to Neighbors at some point. But when you just look at the salary slate as it is, when you look at the guys right above and behind him, it gets kind of tough to see him with the injury, with the very low team total for the Giants, even against a bad Colts defense. It's very tough to see him be an option. Certainly could go off, right? If he get with that target total, if he gets a touchdown or two, he's absolutely going to be in play as a slate breaker. But can he get those touchdowns? Saw him score a bunch of touchdowns early in the season, just hasn't happened of late, just because the offense has been so bad. So I don't even know who's starting for the Giants this week. Is it still Drew Lock, I assume? I don't even know. Colts defense would be interesting, but they're just so high priced. They're $3,500 on DK. Let's pull up the on FanDuel. They're $4,900. They're the second highest priced defense on each slate or on each site. It's just better options. I don't know if they're better, but they're options that I like as much at a much cheaper price. So yeah, I definitely like the Colts defense this week, but again, at that price, there's teams I'd much rather play, especially if you're going to need, $4,900 doesn't seem like a lot. $3,500 on DK doesn't seem like a lot, but when it's as tight as it is, salary wise, if I can go down to the Raiders at $2,600 and save $1,000, I think I want to do that. So it's tough to see the Colts being a team that I'm going to be putting into my lineups this week as a defense, even though I think they're a good play. Speaking of the Las Vegas Raiders, let's get to their game at New Orleans. Vegas is a 2-point road favorite in this one, 37.5 point total. Just absolutely gross. 19.75 for the implied total for the Raiders and 17.75 for New Orleans, a New Orleans team that just got shut out on Monday night by a Green Bay Packers defense missing 3 starters in the secondary and their middle linebacker. And honestly, never even seemed like they were close to scoring. The one drive they had where they looked like they might threaten to put some points on the board ended in one of the worst interceptions you will ever see by a career special teams player. So Spencer Rattler is not the answer. So I do love the Raiders this week as a pay down defense. They are $2,600 on DraftKings, and let's get their price on FanDuel. Yeah, the second lowest price defense on FanDuel at $3,200. So absolutely love them as a play. Spencer Rattler just is not. Spencer Rattler's not good, and this team is just absolutely decimated, right? No Alvin Kamara, no Chris Olave. He practiced this week, but with the concussions, this guy, he should not be coming back, and he's not going to play this week. So no MVS, no Rashid Shaheed. Juwan Johnson is literally the only offensive threat they have. Kendre Miller looked terrible, and then he was, in the negative game script, he got pulled in the second half. Not pulled, but just in the passing situations, he just wasn't on the field. So Kendre Miller's not an option for me, even in a good matchup against the Raiders. So for me, this is all about the Raiders defense and some pay down plays for the Raiders, and that's Jacoby Myers and Amir Abdullah. Abdullah is my favorite pay down running back of the week. Let's check his price here. He is $5,600 on FanDuel, and on DK, $5,100. So like him quite a bit. I think he had like 14 touches last week, something like that, or 13, 6 targets, 7 carries, scored a touchdown in 2 straight games, I think. Yeah, 2 straight games with touchdowns for Amir Abdullah. He's the preferred passing game option there. He's just a better player than Alexander Madison. So I like Amir Abdullah, one of my few pay down options that I really like this week. And then Jacoby Myers, let's look at his price. He is $6,000 on DK, and his FanDuel price, $6,600. So very affordable, and we've seen the Saints just get relentlessly beaten up by slot receivers. So I do like Jacoby Myers. Love Brock Bowers this week, but man, you got to pay for him, and that's really tough to do. $7,600 on FanDuel, and then $6,700 on DK. He's $1,000 higher than the next closest tight end. It's hard to say that I wouldn't rather just go to a TJ Hawkinson or a Tucker Kraft and a better game script. Even though Bowers could be a defining player in the slate, but you're going to have to make sacrifices to get him in there. So tough to do because he's so expensive relative to the rest of the tight ends. But he's going to be in play. He's absolutely killing it. If he scores a touchdown, he probably does break the slate, and he absolutely could do that. But again, with that $1,000 difference between him and the next closest tight end, it's just really tough to get him into your lineups. And there are some other tight ends that I do like quite a bit this week. We talked about Jake Ferguson, and there's one in the next game. That game is Tennessee and Jacksonville. We'll get to that one right now. 38.5 point total in this one again. So another pretty gross game. This game is a pick'em right now. Tennessee is at Jacksonville on the road, so would be slight neutral site favorites, but in Jacksonville, they are a pick'em. 19.25 implied total for both teams. I love Okonkwo in this game. 3,600 on FanDuel. I wrote him up in the article. And then 5,400 on FanDuel. 3,600 on DK, excuse me. He's just been getting double-digit targets since Mason Rudolph took over for Will Levis. So hasn't scored a bunch of touchdowns, but with that target share, again, where you need to pay down a tight end, probably you want that volume. So I think he can absolutely get there in this matchup against a terrible Jacksonville defense. Again, neither team has anything to play for here, so let's let's target the tight end, I guess. The other play I like in this game again is Tyjae Spears for Tennessee. It sounds like no Tony Pollard this week, so Spears is going to be a pay down option. 5,800 on FanDuel, and then let's check his DK price. He is 5,400. So if you want to play like Amir Abdullah and Tyjae Spears, and then play the expensive receivers, like Justin Jefferson, Mike Evans, maybe get a Brock Bowers in there, I think that would be interesting. Good way to differentiate yourself. So yeah, I think he and Abdullah are my favorite pay down running backs of the week, especially with Tony Pollard, like I said, likely being out. And then on the Jacksonville side, it's all about Brian Thomas Jr. He is their entire offense. He is 6,800 on DK, and over on FanDuel, he is 7,500. you look at the salary price. He's $100 more on on FanDuel than Tyreek Hill. I have no interest in Tyreek Hill in DFS against or with whoever's going to be playing quarterback for Miami. If it's Tyler Huntley, I don't want Tyreek Hill against Cleveland in probably a bad weather game. So, I would much rather play Brian Thomas Jr. He's cheaper than Malik Neighbors. He's healthy. So, as much as I like Malik Neighbors as a player, it's hard to say. It's hard to kind of fit him into a lineup ahead of Brian Thomas Jr., who's absolutely getting it done. Like he's the entire offense. 13, 14, 12, 10 targets the last 4 weeks. Just absolutely insane volume. The offense runs around him. So he will be in a lot of my lineups this week. Tank Bigsby, Travis Etienne, they're in play. Like we just saw Tennessee just get demolished by Jonathan Taylor last week. I've said all season that their defense is a fraud, and we got kind of proven last week. So, pick one. They're basically the same price. Bigsby 6,100, ETN 6,000 on FanDuel. So pick the one you like. I think they're both in play as a pay down option. Over on DK, it's kind of flipped. ETN is 5,300. Bigsby is 5,200. So $100. Pick one, pick both. I wouldn't play both, but you certainly could if you wanted to, I guess. But I think they're in play. But for me, the only Jacksonville option I'm really interested in is Brian Thomas Jr. Again, no quarterbacks I'm playing in this game. A theme of the day, right? Games where I'm just not interested in playing any of the quarterbacks. Philly, Dallas, not interested. Jets, Buffalo, not interested just because of Josh Allen's price. Indy, Giants, not interested. Joe Flacco subbing Drew Lock, not interested in either of those quarterbacks. New Orleans, Vegas, not interested in either one of those quarterbacks. It's a really tough quarterback day. So thank goodness on FanDuel we've got Jaden Daniels in the night game. And thank goodness for DK that we've got Green Bay, Minnesota. So before we get to the late afternoon games, let's talk about our partnership with Expedia. It's playoff season, and that means a trip to see your favorite team on the road, especially like me. If you're a Packer fan, if you're like my wife, a Viking fan, teams are probably going to have to go on the road in the playoffs, which is absolutely crazy. But if you need a hotel in Tampa, if you need to rent a car in Los Angeles, if you need a flight to Denver, go to idpplus.com/Expedia and build the best package to travel to your big game. Again, that's idpplus.com/Expedia. Let's get to the late slate. There's 2 games in the late slate. So Scott Hansen's going to have to do a lot of talking to get a lot of camera time on the red zone today. Let's start here in Northeast Ohio. The Miami Dolphins are traveling to Cleveland to play the Browns. Miami's a 3.5-point road favorite. You're going to have to watch that line. That may come down with the news that Tua is not going to play. But that was what it was. And when I checked this morning, 33-point total in this game. Just the lowest we've seen in quite a while. Miami's, again, 3.5-point favorite, so an implied total of 18.25. The Dorian Thompson-Robinson-led Cleveland Browns are 14.75 implied totals. That is absolutely gross. That's about what the Giants were last week. So just brutal. Again, I'm here in Northeast Ohio. Weather is it's going to be a factor. It's not great today. It's supposed to rain all day. Winds are supposed to pick up in the afternoon. This game would probably be better served if it was played at 1 o'clock, but it's not. It's played in the 4:05 window. So it could get ugly. Weather-wise, it's going to be ugly on the field with these 2 quarterbacks. So Miami was my defensive play of the day going against Dorian Thompson-Robinson. I think both these defenses are in play now. So let's look at their salaries. The Browns, 3,500 on FanDuel, and the Dolphins are 4,700 over on DK. Let's see, the Browns are 2,400 and the Dolphins are 3,200. Again, so the Dolphins were just my play of the week. Excuse me. Going against Dorian Thompson-Robinson, who I love to target. But with Tyler Huntley, I assume, being the Miami quarterback and Tua out, The Browns are absolutely in play. Again, like the like the Raiders, they are cheap and in a very good spot against a bad quarterback. So that becomes an interesting decision. Like which defense do you want to go with? Again, I thought Cleveland was going to be my play, or the Dolphins were going to be my play today against Cleveland, but with the news that Tua is not going to play, Cleveland is definitely in play. With this game total, I'm just, again, you're not getting any discount on the Miami players because Tua is not there. So HN is out at his price. Tyreek Hill is out at his price. Sounds like Jalen Waddle is not going to play. It makes Jonnu Smith a really tough. I thought at his price he would be an interesting play this week. It's really tough to. He's the second highest priced tight end. He's $1,000 behind Brock Bowers, but he's still the second highest priced tight end. And now this game script is going to go absolutely negative. So Jonnu at 6,800 on FanDuel and 5,700 on DK. I can't stomach that when you've got a much better game environment with two good tight ends in the game that we're going to talk about. So, yeah, I think the Tua injury just basically takes all the Dolphins out of play, and all the Cleveland players were out of play with Dorian Thompson-Robinson in there instead of Jameis Winston. So this is just a game that I'm just not interested in playing, and I can't even get on the Dolphins as pivots because they're just too expensive. Obviously, the pricing comes out when they thought the Tua was going to play. He's not going to play. So, yeah, that one injury basically erases an entire team's worth of DFS options. So, kind of a bummer there. All right, let's get to the game of the day. The Green Bay Packers traveling to Minnesota. Minnesota's a 1-point home favorite in this one. 49 is the total, so one of the best total of the games of the Sunday slate. So implied totals of 25 for Minnesota, 24 for Green Bay. Again, like Carolina and Tampa Bay, this is a game that you're going to want to target heavily. Both quarterbacks are in play. Both tight ends are in play at their prices. And a bunch of the receivers, both running backs are in play. So let's take a look at it. Jordan Love hasn't been throwing a lot, but again, this is a tough run defense and a game script that I don't think they're going to be able to just kind of sit behind Josh Jacobs like they had the last few weeks. So Love 7,800 on FanDuel and 6,200 on DK. Like him quite a bit. And then Sam Darnold as well, 7,700 on FanDuel and 6,400. So a little bit more expensive on DK. Basically, pick the cheapest one, right? Whichever site you're playing on. If you're playing on FanDuel, I'm probably going to play Darnold. If you're playing on DK, I'm probably going to play Love. I think they both have similar outlooks, and we'll get similar volume. So take whichever one is cheaper. I do like both of them. They're if you're not going to play Baker Mayfield, if you're not going to play Bryce Young in the Carolina Tampa game, then I think these are really your only options on DK. Obviously, Jay Daniels is going to be an option on FanDuel on the night game, but on DK, these are really your only. You've got four options in quarterback, really: Mayfield, Young, Love, and Darnold, and that's really it. So it's going to be an interesting day on DraftKings to see how this plays out. Sounds like Christian Watson is not going to play for the Packers, so I think that puts Dontavian Wicks in play. Like him quite a bit without Watson. He's really showed up when he's had the opportunity to be a starter, and he's 3,900 on DraftKings. And let's look at his price over on FanDuel, 5,200. So very good price there. He had a great game against Minnesota back in week 4 when they played. So I do like him quite a bit as a pay down option in this game. Love Jaden Reed in this game. He's just absolutely destroyed Minnesota over his career. 6,700 on FanDuel. And then on DK, he is 5,900. So I like him quite a bit. If you look at the last 2 games he played, basically a year ago, they played again in week 17. He had, I think, 6 for 86 and 2 touchdowns. And then their game in week 4, he was over 100 yards and had a touchdown in that game as well. So Minnesota struggles against slot receivers, and they have really struggled to contain Jaden Reed over his career at Green Bay. So I love him this week. I like Dontavian Wicks. And then on the Minnesota side, it's do you want to pay up for Justin Jefferson? He's the most expensive wide receiver on both sites, 8,300 on DK. And then on FanDuel, he is 9,000. So very expensive. But like the Packers have done kind of a good job shutting him down in the past, but that has been when they had Jair Alexander, and Jair Alexander is not going to play in this game. Again, the Packers still missing 3 players from the secondary, likely. The rookies, Evan Williams and Javon Bullard, probably not going to play. So their secondary has played well of late, even without those guys. But this is a different animal, right? Trying to contain Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison. I do love Addison this week, especially considering his price. He's 7,000 on FanDuel. And then over on DK, he is 6,300. So I like him quite a bit. Even though, this is one of those things where you need to look beyond the matchup, right? You look at the opponent rankings on the sites, and you'll see that the Packers are pretty high. They're top 5 in fantasy points given up to receivers. But again, they haven't played a lot of great receiving teams. Obviously, against the Saints, they did nothing did score. So they did play Seattle a couple of weeks ago and did well against them. But again, Geno Smith went out, Sam Howell was in. So that ranking can be a little bit misleading. So I like Jordan Addison. Obviously, if you can fit Justin Jefferson into your salary structure, he is a very appealing option as well. If you're going to pair him with Sam Darnold, I like that. And then both tight ends are in play. Hutchison, 4,500 on FanDuel, on DK. Tucker Kraft, 3,900 on DK. And then over on FanDuel, it's Hutchison is 5,700 and Tucker Kraft is 5,200. I wouldn't get cute and play Luke Musgrave yet. I think he's going to be a factor in the playoffs, but just came back last week off of IR. Didn't get a whole lot of action. Saw a few snaps. I think they're kind of trying to wean him back in. 4,400 on FanDuel. And on DK, let's check his price there. 2,500. So he's almost minimum price. If you basically need a free square, I could see it over on DK, but again, I don't trust the volume. He got 1 target last week, so tough to play him. I do like. Hard to play the running backs in this game. I like them in general, but again, I think this is a game where it's just going to be. It's kind of a shootout situation, and I don't know how much work that either one of them are going to get. So Aaron Jones at 6,200 would be my preferred play. 6,200 on DK, and then over on FanDuel, he is 7,400. He would be my preferred play of the two. Again, this just is not a game that Josh Jacobs is going to be able to kind of dominate like he has the last month. Minnesota's got a very good run defense. Again, a very much a pass funnel defense. So again, at his price, he's really kind of tough to swallow. 8,300 on FanDuel, and then second highest price running back on DK at 8,100. So on the short week, I think he will get a lot of volume. They're going to try and force him the ball. They're going to want to stick with the run quite a bit and not get into obvious passing situations. But at that price, I'd much rather play Jonathan Taylor. I'd probably rather play James Cook. I'd rather just kind of feed the chalk with Bucky Irving than go with Josh Jacobs this week. It's really, really tough to kind of eat him at his price, eat that salary in a game that it's probably going to be a shootout. They're probably going to have to throw a lot, and I don't think that they're going to be able to. I just lean on him like they have the past few weeks. So a lot of good options in the passing game in this one. Probably not so much in the run game. But one of my favorite games to target, if you think that the market is going to go heavily towards the Carolina-Tampa game, then I think this game is a really good pivot to kind of load up on. You can do a Jordan Love, Dontavian Wicks, Jaden Reed, and then bring it back with a Hutchinson, Addison, or something like that. Or go vice versa, Sam Darnold, Hutchison, Addison, and then bring it back with Wicks and Jaden Reed. So I like this game quite a bit, especially through the receiving game. Then one more game to get to. That is the night game for the FanDuel slate. And thank goodness for that. We needed it. Just crazy lights. Again, I get it. NFL wants to make money, but just putting 2 games on Christmas and then 3 games on the Saturday slate really makes things thin for the the DFS main slate on Sunday. So we need that Sunday night game on FanDuel. That is Washington home against Atlanta. Game of playoff implications for both teams. So one of the few games this week that does have playoff implications for both teams. Very few games. It may be the only one. Let me look. The Green Bay, Minnesota are both in the playoffs, but that game is basically just for seeding. So this is the only game with playoff implications for both teams. So Washington is a 3.5 point home favorite. The total in this one is 46.5. So implied totals of 25 for Washington, 21.5 for Atlanta. I did on FanDuel run out a lineup that was based on Jaden Daniels and Terry McLaurin. I absolutely love those two. So Daniels is 8,500 and McLaurin is 7,900. Again, Atlanta is an absolute pass funnel defense. They are very good against the run and just terrible against the pass. So love McLaurin, love Jaden Daniels this week, and I'm happy to build a FanDuel lineup around them. Don't like Brian Robinson, like I said. Just not a game that I want to play him in, just not an environment that I want to play him in. They are favorites, but I don't think it's a game that they're on huge favorites. So I don't think it's a game that they're going to get out to a big lead and kind of want to sit on the ball. Unless if you think you're going to get a bunch of turnovers from Michael Penix or something like that, I could see it. But again, you're not getting a huge discount on Brian Robinson. It's not a super cheap price. He's 6,900. I'd rather play Rachaad White. Rather pivot to Rachaad White at 6,800. Go down to Bigsby at 6,100. I'd rather play Amir Abdullah, honestly, at his price than go with Brian Robinson. Certainly could get there. I mean, yeah, he could fall in the end zone twice and be the guy you need in this game, but I don't see that. So I like the Jaden Daniels, Terry McLaurin. Not much else in the Washington passing offense you can trust. I'm not going to Olamide Zaccheaus. I'm not going to Luke McCaffrey. Those guys just don't get enough volume. And it's really tough to trust Zach Ertz coming off that concussion. So love McLaurin, love Jaden Daniels. Not much else I like in this game. Drake London, again, he's got an injury he's dealing with himself. He's not on the injury report, but at 7,100, again, he's right there with Jordan Addison. I'd much rather play Addison in the better game environment. Darnell Mooney is just too hit and miss for this slate for his price. He's 6,400. I'd rather pay up for $200 more for Jacoby Myers. I'd rather pay down $100 for Calvin Ridley in the Tennessee game. So, he's tough to trust. And then Kyle Pitts is just completely off the radar. He's a complete zero. I'm not going there. Can't do it. I just don't trust the Atlanta passing offense with Penix and in general. Like Penix looked, again, what you said, he looked better than Kirk Cousins, but probably gives them a better chance to win than Kirk Cousins. But again, he's a rookie quarterback against a very good defensive coordinator, Dan Quinn, or defensive head coach in Dan Quinn. So I think the Washington pass defense is going to be able to kind of shut them down a little bit. If you want to go to Bijan, you can. I think he's a solid play, but again, he's very expensive. 8,900, the second highest priced running back on the FanDuel slate. He's more than James Cook, more than Jonathan Taylor, who I like much better, more than Josh Jacobs, more than Bucky Irving, again, who's going to be the chalk, more than Breece Hall. I think I'd rather play Breece Hall against Buffalo. So again, at his price, this is all price relative, right? 7,900 versus 8,900. That extra $1,000, you got to make it up somewhere. So like Bijan, he's really been carrying that Atlanta offense the last couple of weeks, but as the second highest price back, I'd rather just pay this extra $700 and go up to Saquon Barkley in a game script that they're probably going to be trailing. So I don't think he makes a very appealing play, being the second highest priced RB on the FanDuel slate. So that's it. Very, very short slate for the week. Only 8 games on the main slate and then 9 on the FanDuel slate with the Sunday night game. Again, a lot of games taken off the slate because of Christmas and because of the Saturday triple header. Sounds like this is something we're just going to have to get used to. We heard Jerry Jones this week talk about wanting to play on Christmas every year, whether it's, no matter what day it falls on. Next year it falls on Thursday, so maybe that takes the place of the Christmas games and the Thursday game. Who knows? But again, this short Week 17 Sunday slate for DFS, I think, is something that we're going to have to get used to. I think it's going to be the way of things to come. All right, it's time for flag plants. My 2 flag plants are going to be, obviously, they're going to be in the Carolina and in the Green Bay, Tampa and the Green Bay, Minnesota game, because those are the 2 game environments that I like this week and want to target. So that's Mike Evans is my first. We talked about him, about how they're going to want to absolutely force him the ball and get him to his 1,000-yard season. Baker Mayfield has talked about wanting to get him that 1,000 yards. I'm sure it's very important to him. I'm sure it's important to the organization. So I think he's going to get force-fed until he gets at least 100 yards. I don't think there's any way he's coming out of this game with less than 100 yards. Probably gets a touchdown against a bad Carolina pass defense. So, and I think Bucky Irving is going to be super chalk at running back. So if that means I need to pivot to Mike Evans to get in this game and not kind of eat that much chalk, I'm going to do it. Second flag plan is Jaden Reed for the Green Bay Packers. Again, we talked about him a second ago. Minnesota struggles against the pass. They give up fantasy points. They're not bad against the pass, but they give up a lot of fantasy points to receivers. They're especially bad against slot receivers. And Jaden Reed has a history of kind of eating up the Minnesota Vikings. So love Jaden Reed this week, and he is at a very palatable price point. So I like him quite a bit. So that is it for this week. I'm Joel Wirth. You can find me on the Twitter and at on the Blue Sky at the Joel Wirth. You can find my DFS article every week on the site. That's IDP Plus. And you can get a 20% discount on any subscription when you go to idpplus.com/membership and enter the promo code PROPS. It's playoff season. So if you want to do your playoff best ball, your playoff leagues, I know obviously your championships are happening this week. So good luck with everyone, but we're not going to let this go, right? We're going to have week 18 DFS, and then we're going to move on to playoff fantasy. So if you want your playoff fantasy information, the best place to go is IDP Plus. So get all our tools, data, IDP articles. Don't miss out on the subscriber Discord. So again, 20% off site-wide with the promo code PROPS. Just go to idpplus.com/membership. And there you can find my DFS top plays of the week article. Should be interesting next week when we get to week 18. With week 17 losing this many players, can't imagine what week 18 is going to bring, but at least we'll have a bigger slate. So we'll have that going for us. So that is it for this week. Appreciate you stopping by. I want to say hi to our friend Gary. I want to thank everyone for tuning in this week and wish you the best of luck. Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, Happy Holidays, no matter how you celebrate. We appreciate you checking in. Appreciate you being here all year. And we'll be here. We'll be back next week for week 18. Until then, good luck DFS in your DFS. Good luck in your championships. And we will see you next week.
Thank you for watching the IDP Plus YouTube network. If you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe to our channel. Be sure to tap the bell icon to get notified whenever we upload new content.